for the management of resources and societal welfare and for personal accumulation. Secondly, as my other colleague said, there has been no deterrence to electoral violence. Look at, I mean, the last committee did say that there have been so many committees in the history of Nigeria which have investigated or probed electoral violence and other forms of violence. And these committees have come out with reports, and none of these reports have been executed or implemented. Over the years, persons have been indicted, persons have been known for involvement in electoral violence, and they have been working free in society. Yes, I mean, there have been talk of setting up an electoral, offenses tribunal to try persons who are involved in electoral irregularities, including violence, after the elections. But like INEC chairman has once said, when I was in a conference with him, that if that facility is to be put in place, it will involve so much, structure and infrastructure to be able to execute it, because there will be so many tribunals that will be required to execute it. I think what we need is, one, awareness. For example, my colleague at your headquarters have mentioned the issue of the mobilization of youth and the fact that the children of the rich are not involved. Secondly, a strong deterrence system must be put in place. A strong system of deterrence must be put in place. People should not be allowed to benefit from electoral violence. People who have been engaged in electoral violence should not be allowed to even occupy the office for which they use violence to acquire. And therefore, our determination should be in ensuring deterrence to incidences of violence. Who are involved? What has been done to those who are involved? We must work out a system that will ensure that there's effective deterrence against electoral violence. The synergy among security agencies is quite commendable, and I think it goes beyond synergy. It should also involve, capacity to address issues of rights, issues of the rights of citizens, issues of the rights of voters. It's not just preventing violence, but you must be conscious. You must accommodate the rights of citizens. The rights of citizens should not be abused in the name of securing elections. So the security agencies must be given capacity in terms of managing the rights of citizens during the elections. And then all of us as citizens must commit ourselves to free and fair elections. If that occurs, I'm sure that the fear around 2015, which yes can be quite seen in the sense that for the first time in the Fourth Republic, there is now a formidable opposition, and therefore the electoral contest is likely to be more keen, more competitive, closer than ever before. But let us hope that even this balance, this formidability of the new opposition and of the ruling party can also ensure that violence is eliminated, because it could mean that one party cancels out the other, they balance out the other. The fact that there's capacity by each of the two major parties to do anything, it should also be a deterrence to the other parties. So let us hope that the two parties will cancel themselves out, and that will ensure that violence will be less in the elections that we are expecting in a month and a half's time.
All right, Prof.
Very loaded.
Look, all this elections is to bring on leaders on board. And over time in Nigeria, when you ask what is the problem of the country, they tell you leaders. Some will even go to stress it 3 times: leadership, leadership, leadership. But again, these leaders, like you rightly pointed out earlier on, the leader himself does not go to tackle all the problems because he doesn't have monopoly of knowledge of everything.
Yes.
He needs advisors, people who would tell him what to do in certain areas. Now, I'll give you a practical example of the state, for instance, what happens there. All these advisors are simply brought on board for political patronage, not because they really have anything to offer. That goes even to the executive council. Some of the commissioners are also, they can hardly speak against any decision of their executive, and that cuts across all the board. Now, should we on this program begin to set agenda? Who should we look for when it comes to advisors? Because they play a key role. Their doings or undoing at the end of the day affects what the leader does, and at the end of the day, the ordinary man bears the brunt.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Let me say that talking about leadership, we should emphasize quality leadership. And that's one of our biggest problems too, because you see, when elections are conducted and people win, The next consideration is, who were those that were instrumental to my victory, and how do we compensate them? And that's where the mistake comes from. And in the process, you find people that are grossly incompetent, who know next to nothing on the issues they're going to advise on, being deployed to such places. And we don't make any progress. You see, and you see, let me just digress a little bit. You know the immediate past Minister for Information. I understand he's defected to APC. I don't know how true it is.
Abga. We hear
Sorry,
Abga.
is it Abga? Okay,
Yes.
Abga, sorry, Abga. Mr. Labra Mako from Nassau State here. What happened? I've not gotten the details. Maybe the primaries, the process was flawed, a lot of my practice and all of that, and probably got frustrated and moved over. It's not only in Nassau State, even in Oyo State. Some people lost at the PDP, defected some other parties, and are now their flag bearers. You know, so, but the point I'm making is this, in agreement with what you just said, we must insist on quality leadership. There must be laid down criteria that must be met. If you're going to be in social place, what are the requirements? Take, for instance, the military and the police, for instance. Let's say the military. Before you get promoted, you must attend certain courses, you must have promotion exams, you must have had good annual performance reports and all of that, okay? Evaluation reports. So this arbitrariness must stop. This patronage must stop. We can't continue this way. We're not making any headway. And let me also advise, there is nothing wrong in bringing somebody on board, even if it's in another party, but he has the wherewithal to come and effect the change. But what do we have today? If PDP, for instance, is in power as it is now, and one of the best brains we have is from Labour Party or APC, of course it's shut out. Who loses? All of us? We lose.
But again, Claire, let me make this clarification.
Yes.
So I'm sure the politician, if he's watching at home now, he'll be laughing and say they don't know what they're talking about. In the sense that, is it not political suicidal for you, for instance? ABC worked for you, and then when you come into power, you feel, no, there is a brain in places AZ, you know, and they are the ones you're going to bring on board. How do you make these people that work for you happy? Now, this is the practical reality.
I agree
so let's not pretend. How do we tackle
No,
that
I agree
issue?
with you. You see, let me tell you, don't give those guys who don't have what it takes the impression that at the end of the day, when you win, they're going to get political appointments.
Sometimes you have to make such promises.
But of course, they're politicians. When they say yes, they mean no. Don't have you forgotten that? No, but that is what, listen, Claire, that is what the culture of insincerity, okay? But talking very seriously, we need to do that. And that is a good to raise issue. Let me make a point here. Let me advise foreign governments. If Claire is my sister and I bring her on board, give her a political office, I must warn her before she steps in. Claire, if you misbehave, you breach any law, you are going to be sunk and face the law. But not when Claire breaches the law, because she's my sister, nothing happens to her.
But of course,
Claire
Claire must be qualified.
No, just I'm coming to the issue of qualification.
Yes.
That is beside the issue. I'm talking of some of the things we are facing, situations we are facing right now. But because Ibrahim is not in any way related to me, the slightest thing he does, he must be beheaded. Yeah, that's it. So these are some of the issues. These are some of the issues. But before we digress too far, quality leadership, we must know what. For instance, what is the business of a carpenter in the Ministry of Health? You want to go to the Ministry of Health, you must be a medical doctor, right? If you want to go to the Ministry of Education, you must be a graduate in education. A teacher with so much experience. But what do we have? You want to send an architect to the Minister of Justice. You want to send a lawyer to the Minister of Works. These are some of the problems we have.
Prof.
AIJ, we must take our last set of questions because our time is fast spent. And we get back to Professor Dandaura. Now, when the Ebola hemorrhage fever broke, it took the global community by shock. You know, first of all, other West African countries were complacent, and indeed the global community turned the other way, turned their eyes the other way. But when it hit Nigeria, everybody was on the alert. Of course, you know the implications of that. Nigeria is the largest, most populous nation in Black Africa. So, but the manner and the speed at which we tackled Ebola shocked the world. It didn't matter what state, this state is party A, this state is party B. There was synergy, and we showed capacity to tackle Ebola. How can we leverage that kind of commitment, synergy, and capacity, to other sectors in the national development this year?
I think the Ebola issue also helps to confirm my thesis that 2015 will be peaceful in spite of all the drums. Nigerians have seen enough deaths, and everybody is afraid to die now. And that also demonstrates why everybody was interested in containing the Ebola virus. We all worked together. It was only after the fight that people now started wanting to fight over taking credit. But if we deploy the same situation in, say, terrorism, the fight against terrorism, for instance, I am very sure that we'll put it behind us the way we have put Ebola behind us. And the issue is until people begin to see the threat that we face as individuals and as members of the corporate entity we call Nigeria, we would not have that unity in approaching problems. So we need to begin to help Nigerians to see the connection between you not demonstrating enough commitment to having a transparent political process, and you're not getting job tomorrow, your relative not getting job tomorrow, or not even getting what is due to you tomorrow. If we begin to show the connections between all this, including the relationship between that and the performance of our economy and all that, I believe that people will begin to see some of these vices we've been talking about, some of these also not taking the right actions, and also the idea of this doesn't concern me, it concerns the politicians and all that. People will begin to become more conscious that that inactivity in one sphere is likely going to affect you in that sphere where you consider is your business. So the country itself, we must see it as a complex whole, and I think that also boils down to continuous education. It boils down also to providing case studies for Nigerians to learn, looking at the experiences of other nations, and also making it available to our countrymen to see how your decision not to get involved in certain aspect can affect you in the area where you find interesting. So that exposure is part of what I think we need to increase, expose Nigerians more to see the relationship between one business of government and the other business of government. That way people will begin to see the need to work together and tackle national challenges as threats to our individual lives, like we did in the case of Ebola. And I think also that we can also tie that to the last issue that was being discussed, the issue of putting the round pegs in the round holes. If we see that getting the wrong person to the right position will affect us as a nation, we can rise up and protest and insist that if a wrong person is posted to one parastatal or a ministry that we think he doesn't have what it takes to execute it, I believe that we have a right as Nigerians to demand the removal of such a person. We also have legal processes that we can use to insist on that. But then I think there will be need for us to also begin to fine-tune our laws in that regard. For instance, the Constitution just talks about special advisors. It assumes that anybody who is qualified to contest for office of president or governor is qualified to be appointed a special advisor. I think we need to tidy it up and begin to attach professionalism there, so that it becomes difficult for a politician who wants to dispense political goodies to just pick anybody and put there. If we have that aspect tightened up in our constitution, specifying the kind of people, they should be experts. You cannot advise on what you do not know. The other thing is, those of us that are in a position to be called experts in one area or the other, we also need to be a little bit more objective we need to be consistent in the way we read society. We need to avoid being unnecessarily partisan. If today you think that you come into government and you think that Dandara will be useful to you in the area of any aspect of communication, of development, administration, for that matter. But yesterday, Dandara was on the podium campaigning for your opponent. You will look stupid appointing him to handle that position. So again, while we are saying the politicians who appoint the right people, we also need to be objective enough. We need to also recognize our role. We are not supposed to be partisan unless we decide to be partisan. And in that situation, I think that we do not expect to be patronized. So we need the professionals to be professional, and that will help us a lot.
Prof, thank you. Let's go over to Benin. Gentlemen, we've got to rush at this point because our time is far spent. Professor Ekelegbe out there in Benin, if you're still with me. Now, each time we talk of leadership, the first thing that comes to the average mind is your minds just go to the president, it goes to the ministers and the governors. But we do know that in Africa, in Nigeria particularly, there are other tiers of leadership. We're looking at the traditional rulers, we're looking at the religious leaders as well. Now, they certainly have a critical role to play, especially in ensuring peace and ensuring that we have the kind of election we deserve, as well as other development issues, don't they?
Yes, I agree with you. Leadership is not just political. We have leaders in almost every facet of society, in other sectors of society. And it will do us well if they are mobilized, particularly in terms of engagement in issues of security, issues of peace, issues of even grassroots development, issues of mobilization of people for the effective pursuance of national interests and things like that. It will do us a lot of good to mobilize these persons. But let us also look at this situation critically. The Nigerians are wary of engaging some of these leaders because of the biases, because of the subjectivity, because of the cleavages that they represent. And we know that in the history of this country, there were times where traditional rulers were engaged in politics, and that desecrated and delegitimated their positions. We also know that if religious leaders are engaged in issues other than pure developmental concerns, then their positions and their legitimacy will also be desecrated. So there should be some wariness and some caution in engaging these sectors. And that's why I agree with you that there are issues that they can be engaged in. The issues of maintaining peace, the issues of mobilizing the people for, engaging in security surveillance and monitoring and even nipping in the broad security issues that occur in the communities. There are also issues of the mobilization of the ordinary people at the grassroots for issues of development. Traditional rulers will do well in that, and also the religious leaders. I think that religious leaders, these leaders must be, they have to be mobilized, and there have to be strictures. There have to be, frameworks for their mobilization. There have to be frameworks for their engagement. There have to be rules and regulations in terms of what they can do and what they should not do. If not, then there will be excesses, and these excesses could also weaken even our national unity and nation building. And so I agree, but there should be some concern. And that also goes to the levels, the other levels of government other than the federal government. We often neglect the local governments, which are in charge of grassroots development. In other words, the provision of minor roads, the provision of primary health care centers, the provision of coverts, the provision of the ordinary things that people need daily are the responsibilities of the local government. But the local government have shirked from these responsibilities. And I think it is time Nigerians begin to focus on the role of each tier of government, which we are educated enough now to know that the federal government has its sphere of responsibility, the local government, the state government have its spheres. And we should hold our leaders at each tier, at each level, responsible for failures, for poor governance systems, for failures of infrastructure and such like. We should begin to hold them responsible rather than blaming President Jonathan for everything. President Jonathan does not have responsibility for everything up to the local government level. The local governments and other tiers of government have their responsibilities. And we should not also just focus on religious and traditional leaders. There are civil society organizations. There are social activists. There are even political leaders who should be engaged in mobilizing Nigerians for development, mobilizing Nigerians. One of the other colleagues, spoke about the need for cutting across the political spectrum in terms of getting capacity, professionals and all that to do what we need as a nation. If this requires going across other parties, so be it. We need as a nation to go beyond where we are. We need to address certain critical issues. We need to move forward. And the current situation is a sad commentary on the quality of human resources that we have in this country. This country is endowed with some of the best, highest level of human resources in the world. And yet we are unable to manage even minor issues. We are unable to manage issues that are critical to our survival, to our well-being, and to our development. I think it is time we cut.
All right, Professor Augustine Ikelebe, Professor of Political Science, University of Benin. We do appreciate your contribution to Good Morning Nigeria this morning. And we on Good Morning Nigeria wish you a pleasant and fulfilling 2015.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, back to the studio, and a quick one for AIG Felix Ogbaudu. The biggest event before us now is the election, the general election. And like Professor Dandara said, Ebola, the way and manner in which we tackle Ebola present us with a platform with which we can also attack the elections and make it violent-free.
Well, let me start by saying that when we had the Ebola issue, if it attacked you, Ebola wouldn't want to know whether you belong to APC or PDP. Okay? You get hit. So that was what brought in that synergy, everybody being committed, unlike in politics. It's the issue of winner takes it all. That's the perception. So if I win, I take everything, and you lose and lose everything, then we keep on fighting. That's one of the problems. But let us go back to the issue of the election 2015 before I forget this. I subscribe to as many security agents as possible being deployed, including the army, including the military. I would rather have over-security than inadequate security. Because at the end of the day, when something goes wrong, they're going to blame them. And in any case, let us enlighten the electorate that the soldiers are deployed there to maintain law and order, maintain peace. They're not there to intimidate anybody. So I don't object to the military being deployed to complement the other security agents to maintain law and order during the election period.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. AIG, of course, retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Felix Ogbaudu, also a learned friend. Thank you very much for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria, and also we wish you a fulfilling 2015. And Professor Emmanuel Dandaura is a professor at the Nasarawa State University, Kefi. Prof, thank you very much. And as usual, all of us here on Good Morning Nigeria wish you a fulfilling year.
It's my pleasure.
Adra.
All right. I guess we should get a dose of some sporting stories now, like we hear from our correspondent who has been busy monitoring what's happening. He says the Super Eagles of Nigeria on the first day of the year, that's New Year, were very busy. They intensified training because, of course, they have a couple of international friendlies coming up. Musbau, give us the details.
Alright, sport is here. Super Eagles of Nigeria, under the tutelage of assistant coach Daniel Amokachi, have intensified training ahead of their international friendlies coming up next week in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates.
As Nigerians mark the New Year public holiday with pomp and pageantry, players and coaches of the senior national team, the Super Eagles, are sweating it out in training at the main bowl of the Abuja National Stadium. This is in preparation for the international friendlies against Sudan and Cote d'Ivoire next week in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Assistant coach Daniel Amokachi, who led the training session with 23 of the invited 25 players, is optimistic of a better preparation for the friendlies.
We will do our portion, try to build them up to to the level that we think they can play that game. We took it easy, just for them to have the feel of the ball and a bit of cardio to see if they can stand, the next few days.
From the English Premier League now, as Manchester United opened the New Year's Day matches with a third draw in 4 games as they battled 1-1 away at Stoke City. Radamel Falcao swept in from a corner to equalise for United after Ryan Shawcross had given Stoke an early lead with a close-range volley.
Dangerous flick on towards Falcao, who scores!
The sports this morning, the program continues very shortly. Compliments of the season.
Okay, let's quickly take a look at what's happening on the foreign scene and renewed hope for 3 jailed Al Jazeera journalists as Egypt's top court orders for a retrial following report of irregularities in the previous trial. Nnamdi Odikbu has the details of these and more on the foreign scene.
Hello and welcome. Compliments of the season. Egypt's top court has ordered a retrial of 3 Al Jazeera journalists jailed on charges of spreading false news. The decision was made after the hearing in Cairo of an appeal by the 3, Peter Gretel, Mohamed Famin and Bahi Mohammed, against their conviction. Defense lawyers said prosecutors acknowledged major problems with the verdict and a new trial will occur within a month, but the trio must stay in custody. In Shanghai, at least 35 people have been killed and dozens injured after a stampede broke out during the New Year's celebration in the Chinese city. Reports say the cause of the stampede on the Bund, the financial hub of Shanghai's popular waterfront area, was still unclear. At least 48 people were also injured. And we heard that 2 more bodies have been recovered from the Java Sea as search operations continued for the remains of Air Asian flight QZ 8501. The bodies flown to an air base in Brunei brings to 9 the total number of bodies recovered. The funeral of one of the victims, a flight attendant, has been held. However, bad weather has continued to hamper the search for wreckage. The plane came down 5 days ago en route from Indonesia to Singapore with 162 people on board. No survivor has been found. And finally, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has won another term as leader of the ruling Likud party in the run-up to a snap election, easily defeating his lone outright challenger. General elections had been due in Israel in late 2017, but they were brought forward by Netanyahu in early December after the collapse of his coalition. Netanyahu, who has been in power since 2009, will seek to win a 3rd straight term in office and a 4th in total. He served the first stint as prime minister between 1996 and 1999. The results of the ballot cleared the way for Netanyahu to lead his party into battle for the March 17 election. And that's it on the foreign scene. Once again, compliments of the season and welcome to 2015.
Well, it's time to step on the brakes, at least a little, to get some entertainment as we begin to wind down today's edition of the program.
Hello, and it's good to have you join us. As Nigeria joins the rest of the world to usher in the new year, the annual crossover countdown was not devoid of music, laughter, and merrymaking. Lagos State, the commercial nerve center of Nigeria, played host to the 2nd edition. We had 50 musicians in attendance.
The crossover into a new year around the world is always a beautiful spectacle to behold, with people converging to usher in the new year with fireworks, music, and merrymaking. Typified with style, the 2nd edition of the Lagos State Countdown held audience spellbound, creating scenario with performing artists serenading music lovers to a rendition of their hit songs. The event, which is gradually becoming an attraction for many, kicked off on the 7th of December and had its grand finale at the eve of the new year. intensifying the crossover with fireworks rhythm, indicating the beginning of the new year and a time to celebrate life. The second edition was also a moment to reflect on 2014 and one to share resolutions, expectations, and dreams.
Beautiful transition into 2015 right there, and wishing you a prosperous new year. That does it on arts and entertainment. Good morning.
All right, and we gladly end, of course, Good Morning Nigeria this year. The first time it's Friday, but don't forget, of course, tomorrow, make it a deal with us. You have Weekend Deal. It comes up at the same time on the network service, Saturdays and Sundays. But for now, we thank you for making our day, and we wish you a pleasant day.
I wish you a great day as well. My name is Ibrahim Adra.